This is Dennis Raimondi. My guest today, Steve Moloney. Steve is originally from Australia, living in Sweden. He has been two-time Swedish Barista Champion. He is the founder of the Barista League, found at thebaristaleague.com. They have multiple activities going on. They're bringing a new angle on coffee and coffee competition, and I think what I want to do as well, elevate the status of the barista worldwide. Steve, thank you so very much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us first a little bit about yourself and how you got to coffee. And I want to mention on our podcast here, I have an interview with Steve where we get into a lot about him and his background in coffee. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Steve and a lot about what he's doing with the Barista League. But tell us a little bit about your journey into coffee.
Right, so I moved to Sweden from Australia about almost 5 years ago now, and started working in a little cafe just to kind of bring in some money and tie over the time, and basically just got sucked deeper and deeper into specialty coffee. Just kept meeting more and more awesome people who knew so much, and eventually kind of got stuck in it like that.
Okay, and then you were working in coffee, you were working as a barista, you were training people, you were training other baristas. Then you started putting more energy into other areas, and that area has mostly been the Barista League. And as I mentioned before, and we'll have the link to baristaleague.com. How did that come into being? What was the motivation behind that?
Right, exactly. I'm kind of running around trying to do too many different things, but I was doing training, and I'd competed in a few different competitions, and trying to do as much as possible. And as I was seeing all these kind of cool things happening in coffee, people on origin trips and visiting amazing restaurants and doing collaborations, I felt that there was like this divide between all the cool stuff that was happening and the stuff that I would get to do in the cafe, or I would see all my colleagues doing. So the original idea was basically to bring some of that fun stuff that there is to do in specialty coffee, and to bring it back to the communities, the baristas who are actually the ones working as frontline customer service. So back in 2015, we had a bit of a kind of summer party, which we had the first Barista League competition. And the main concept's basically the same as it is today, where we basically put a whole bunch of cool people in a room, get them to compete in like a fun, open, engaging way, and basically just bring the community together.
Right, and were there other people that were thinking like you that said, hey, look, this is an idea whose time has come, let's go with this? Or were you sort of a maverick on your own, trying to convince people that this is a good idea?
Probably a bit of both. It seems like this year especially, we're getting a lot of support, and a lot of people saying like this is really needed. But back then it was took a bit of convincing for people. Like, yeah, this is actually a fun competition, and you don't have to prepare, and you can just come along and hang out with us, which is a bit tough to convince people in the beginning. But yeah, it's getting better.
Thus far, you've had activities in Oslo. You have, well, that's coming up. I should say to our listeners, we're taping this in March, I think March 18th, 2018. And this weekend coming up, you have an event in Oslo. Then you have something that's going to be taking place in Amsterdam. But the big event that I want to focus on is your USA tour. That'll be coming up, I believe, in September 2018. And there'll be competition and whatnot. Tell us about, okay, so barista competitions exist. I don't know how long they've been around, probably 15, 20 years. And I've had I've had Tim Windelbow, who's a former world champion. I had Dale Harris, this year's world champion, on. I've had Kyle Ramage, the U.S. champion. So they've had these competitions, but your competition will be different. You're going to take a different angle or a different approach to it, is my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the WBC, the one that Dale and Sasha and Tim have competed in, it's super cool and it's important, but it requires quite a lot from a competitor and their team. So we're talking about a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of kind of experience and expertise that you need to be able to get in there at the top level. So my idea is basically to take away all those barriers to entry and make it as accessible and engaging as possible, so that anyone from the best barista in the world. We actually have Dale Harris competing in next weekend in Oslo. He can compete against someone who works in a big coffee chain that just wants to start getting to know coffee. Right. So the idea is that people can come together and compete and create this kind of really cool community that doesn't require tons of investment and time and makes it inaccessible for people.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. Educate me on this. I mean, you've been in these major competitions. You're the Swedish National Champ twice. You went in the World Competition. I had Michaela Javard, who you know on. She was the champion from Finland, and it's gone on to other competitions. So if somebody's a barista working in Sweden or in the States or wherever, and they want to go into one of these competitions, I guess they train on the side and then they go in. What I'm thinking of is, what if some company, and I don't know if this happens, like Intelligentsia, one of the big giants in the industry, says, all right, we want to, for prestige, we want to win this competition. Could be Starbucks. So we're going to hire one of the best baristas in the world that we know about, and we're going to tell that woman or that man, you have all the resources. You don't ever have to work as a barista. Just train for this competition, and that'll be great for us. Does that happen? And how do you avoid that from happening?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, it definitely does happen. I mean, what I've seen just personally, I can only really speak from personal experience, but what I've seen is that the people who are competing in the finals of these world competitions typically have taken a lot of time off work and have a lot of financial backing. So if you're coming from working as a full-time barista and training in your off time and just trying to raise a little bit of money to get to the competition to compete, it's really hard to compete against teams that have kind of spent and invested all this time and money and hired the best consultants and coaches and stuff. So it definitely does happen. I think it's getting a little bit more towards that professional sports F1 type thing where there is a bit of a pay-to-play aspect to it, unfortunately.
Well, let me ask you another question related to that, and that is, when people go into competition, are they all given the same equipment? Are they all using the same beans roasted at the same time from the same supplier, or is that all different?
It depends on the competition. So the Barista, the WBC, the World Barista Competition, you have to use the same equipment within reason as everybody else, but you bring your own coffee. So that's where the big kind of barrier is. So you have some teams that are spending literally hundreds or even thousands of dollars per kilo. Maybe that's a bit too much, but hundreds of dollars per kilo on a coffee, and some teams that pay somewhere between $10 and $20, which is still quite an expensive coffee. So then you have that as a big barrier to entry, where we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars worth of coffee being used for these competitions.
Now, how does the Barista League prevent that from happening?
We basically have this idea that you shouldn't need to prepare or bring anything to the competitions, that a good barista or a good coffee professional their biggest skill, I guess, is their knowledge and sensory perception. So we basically just want them to come, we'll give them a whole set of tools, some great coffees, and within the night we want them to be able to show their skills and use the equipment and coffee that they've got there to make the best drinks.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what's coming up September 2018 in the States. You're going to be going to 4 cities. Portland, Oregon, great coffee city, where Stumptown started. Kansas City, I've been to recently, some great cafes there. Greenville and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is where I believe La Colombe started. Greenville has some great places there. So real, if not some of the top coffee centers in the States. Who'll be coming? How will people find out about it? And what can they expect to experience when they come there, either as a competitor or just as somebody who's going for the fun of going there?
Right. So, I mean, people should start to be hearing about it about now in April. And I guess people should just expect a good time. I mean, we want everybody from new baristas to experienced competitors to roasters to manufacturers, everybody to just come in the room together, hang out, have a few drinks, and watch a really cool coffee competition. So I guess around July we'll be opening team registrations, and we want teams of 2 from all over the States to register, get involved, come out and have a really good competition with us.
Is it typical to have teams of two?
In all Barista League events, we do teams of two, because the idea is that you're not there by yourself. Working in service is never a sole job. You're always in a team. So we think that's a cool way to kind of reduce that extra barrier in case people are nervous about getting up on stage or competing for the first time, and making it a bit more fun so you have someone to compete with.
All right, and my understanding is you have a 3-round interdisciplinary competition, which involves barista skills, sensory skills, and there's a mystery round. So explain all 3 of those to us.
Right. So the barista skills is like the serious one. Can you make coffee taste really good? Can you create drinks using ingredients that you've got there, dialing in an espresso or making a really good brew coffee? And that one is judged by 3 experienced sensory judges that use score sheets to judge the quality of different drinks. The sensory round is it can be different things, but maybe guessing the variety of different coffees or matching a coffee to a map based on where it comes from, or even guessing the type of infusion that we've used in different waters. So a water may taste like apple or mango, and try to guess what that is. So that's just sensory. And then the mystery round is basically something fun that we come up with to throw a bit of a spanner in the works. So we've done speed rounds before, we've done batch brew competitions, like brewing a big batch of coffee, handcuffing the teams together and having them make some drinks. Basically anything we can do to have a bit of fun and test the baristas out.
Right. Let's one other area I want to get into with this is I recently interviewed Michaela Javard, who I know you know. She's the head of human resources at Coffee Collective in Copenhagen, one of the great cafes in the world, and is a former Finnish barista champion. And she's in, I think, Australia now, in Melbourne, I believe. And there's a big conference on women in coffee. And I think that was something that was started by Sonia Zydek, who I'll be having on the show. And so I've heard it said that in the world of coffee, in the world of baristas, a lot of times it's been very male dominated. I've been told that women compete, but it's hard for them to get to the final 6. And also not just women, but people of color, other marginalized groups. Has there been progress in changing that? And is the Barista League committed to putting a focus on a more diversified view of or opportunity for baristas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important and great with events like there's a Women in Coffee event in the States, and we've got Barista Connect that Sonia and Michaela and Camilla do. Mm-hmm. And there's an organization in Portland called Women Investing Northern Competition in the northern area there, mm-hmm. WINCC, sponsoring and looking after female competitors that want to compete. And I think they're all super great. We think it is, of course, that there should be equal representation between all the different parts of the industry, and we're lucky enough to have about 50% male and women competitors. We've had almost 3/4 of our winners have been female over the past 2.5 years, and for us, I think that's just about making it easy and fun for everybody, not making it the competition kind of biased towards or score higher for male attributes or people who for that type of thing.
Right, and I should say that I've been traveling a lot, going to dozens and dozens of cafes throughout the States. I also traveled around Scandinavia, and I have noticed that there's definitely the stereotypical barista of the guy with the man with the beard and the flannel shirt and multiple tattoos still out there. That's great, but there's a lot of women now. There's a lot of people of color. There's a lot of, it's really, I think the barista world is opening up, and I think you guys are doing a lot of work to make that happen. You have a partner in the Barista League, Ash Day. Tell us about her.
Yeah, she actually works at the Coffee Collective with Michaela. So she's been working with Barista League since the beginning of the year, doing all our communications, and she's fantastic. She's actually from Florida, so it's going to be great to have her along with us on the tour. Have a bit of local knowledge from someone there in the States.
Is this your first time, Steve, coming to the States? In
It
your
is
role as
actually for coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you picked some great places, and I've been noticing. I've been probably to about 40 states thus far, and it's really developing. Some areas are more developed than others. You are currently in Scandinavia. You come from Australia, two places where are probably most developed, most sophisticated when it comes to coffee. But I think you'll find Portland and all the other cities you're going to quite advanced, and I think they'll continue to advance. Here's a question I have for you. One of the things the Barista League is committed to doing, and it's something I'd like to help in any way I can with, and that is elevating the status of baristas. Because to me, a good barista is like a fine chef. They're worth their weight in gold. And because I go into a cafe, I want to see what kind of equipment, and I usually judge and usually this is right. If I see somebody that really seems passionate, that they're there creating great coffee, then I'm going to have a good experience. But one of it's a bigger problem in the United States than it is in Scandinavia, from my perspective, and that is that consistency. If I go, you used to work for Don Matteo. If I go in there, I know I'm always going to get a good cup of coffee, whatever I order, with or without milk. But in the States, there's a lot of places like that. But there are a lot of places where you're very barista dependent. There's a huge difference between one barista and another barista in the same cafe. And I think the problem is a lot of these places don't have a consistent, strong training program, an area that you worked in yourself before. I'd like you to just to address that, say what your thoughts are in regard to the importance of proper training and any advice you would give to somebody that's listening in that has a cafe or is opening a cafe.
Oh, it's a big question. No, I mean, I think what you said is absolutely correct. I think that when there's so many things that can happen at the final stage of preparation with coffee, in terms of the brewing and the storage and everything that happens in those final minutes, is so important. Much like a chef, then a lot of it comes down to having baristas who are passionate and skilled and trained up serving customers. And then on top of that, I think service is also an incredibly important part of the chain that we shouldn't forget about. But I mean, like you said, keeping people who are invested and excited about making coffee and just keeping them on board and trying to reduce turnover as much as possible, reward staff for that interest and for that kind of commitment to delivering great coffee, I think is really important. I know a lot of former colleagues and stuff who are super ambitious and excited about coffee and just get a bit burnt out on kind of being stuck behind the bar and not getting anything new to go forward. And obviously there's only so many managerial positions or so many roaster positions in specialty coffee to go around. But even so, I think just looking after the staff, giving them feedback and helping them learn goes a long way to keeping staff longer and increasing that consistency over a long period of time.
Great. And when you do your USA tour with the Barista League, will the Barista Magazine, Sarah Allen, who's the founder of Barista Magazine, will she be involved? I know you had some association there.
Yeah, they've been such a big supporter for the past year and a half, and hopefully they'll be coming along, and they've been helping us a lot get the word out and talk to people over there. So I hope we'll see Sarah at all the events there in August and September.
And what do you ultimately wish to accomplish from this tour?
I mean, from the tour, we just want to get out and see as many people as possible in the States. We decided to do it because so many people had approached us and said, "When are you coming to the US?" And every person that I speak to about the tour in all the different cities, all the hosts and all the partners, just hear so much kind of reassuring feedback about how excited everybody is and how big and how good it's going to be. So I'm really excited to come over and just show everyone that you can have a really fun, engaging competition that's inclusive for everybody. And it doesn't just have to be latte art throwdowns, which is like a nice, fun throwdown thing that a lot of people do there in the States.
And do you have anyone that feels any detractors? Anybody that feels threatened or feels that you're going in the wrong direction with what you're doing?
I don't know. I hope not. I'd welcome them to get in touch and let me know. I mean, we try to focus as much energy as humanly possible on the people who we consider the major stakeholders. So the ones who are actually coming to the events, make sure that the judges are not overworked, that the volunteers are properly looked after, that the competitors don't feel stressed. We want the person who comes in first and the team that comes in last to have equally as much fun and learn as much as each other. So if we're hitting that goal, then I'm really happy, and we're just going to keep trying to do that better and better.
All right, so somebody's out there now and they're listening and they think, okay, I'd like to get involved in this competition. What do they do?
Basically, go on our website, get on our mailing list, so you'll be the first to hear about everything. From August 30 to September 8th, we'll be in the USA, and just come along to one of the events.
Great. All right, Steven, and where do you see the Barista League going? What would you like to accomplish in the next 5 years, looking into the future?
I think we just want to be the kind of the most fun coffee competition in the world. That would be the big goal. So be the one that everybody knows. You go here, you learn a lot, you have some fun, and it's just a really positive experience for everyone in the room. That would be ideal for me, and take that as far as we can.
Great. I want to tell our listeners, full disclosure, I met with Steve in Gothenburg, Sweden, this past summer, and was very impressed with the work he's doing, where he was working, his enthusiasm and excitement and passion for coffee. And I support the Barista League 100%, anything I can do, and I hope to attend at least some of the events that you have, and I really encourage other people to. And if you need more information, you can always contact me directly at thecoffeeleague.com, and I'm looking forward to that, and I hope we have some of your competitors on our show as guests, and that we can continue this, because one of the things, I come from radio, I did a lot of politics, I've had all kinds of interesting people from all walks of life, and I've really gotten tremendous joy out of doing this podcast on coffee, because I've met so many interesting people, and it's like you said, Steve. Ultimately, it's fun. It's fun to go to a cafe. It's fun to experience great coffee, and the people serving the coffee, the baristas, I can sense that many of them are really enjoying and loving what they're doing, and want to share that with others. And I think that's why my focus has not just been on coffee, but coffee culture. And it's a little different in different parts of the world, but it has certain common features. And one of those features is fun and community. So really look forward to what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much. We're looking forward to it too. Thanks for all the support.
All right, all the best. And again, it's the baristaleague.com. We'll have all that information posted up. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you.